I'm your host, U.S. Army Iraq combat medic, veteran, Colonel Dr. Damon Arnold. That's a long thing they put down for me. Today we're going to be talking to our partner, Rod Matthew, of the U.S. Navy veteran, co-founder and CEO of Rivian Energy, specializing in microgrid technologies and renewable energy. The discussion today is Rivian Energy updates. And we are in a time period where we need to be being concerned about energy, especially with our transition into the AI world, where they're saying that we need much more energy than we ever needed before. So I'm really glad to have Rod on to bring me up to date. I have my nephews trying to bring me up to date in the technology. I need Rod to tell me about the energy. So Rod, why don't you go ahead? Tell us what's going on in the energy world.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I'm honored to be here, number one.
Yes.
I guess what's happening in the energy world is we're seeing a lot more solar and renewable energy projects being deployed, primarily because of the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed by the Biden administration. So we're seeing a lot more community solar projects that are being deployed, thanks to what's called the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Funds that was recently deployed by the Environmental Protection Agency, so the GGRF. With those funds, a lot of solar for lower to moderate income communities are being set up as we speak. We're looking at a project right here. I'm in San Diego, and we're looking at doing projects really on brownfield sites, on old closed landfills. In a lot of cases, they are just emitting methane into the air. They are eyesores to the communities. And of course, you know where these are located. They're not located in areas where they have mansions. So primarily they're located in neighborhoods where people look like you and me. So we're looking to clean those up and take it from being an eyesore and a distraction and a medical hazard to the community to actually having the community participate in building a renewable energy power plant where they can receive specialized rates and can even share in some of the profits.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I know that the IRA tax credit provisions of that Inflation Reduction Act, and when he signed it into law, I think a lot of people missed that even happened, what the purpose of that was. And it was a phenomenal thing. We talk about all of his accomplishments, on August 16th of 2022, when he signed the legislation. It opened the door for us to move into a whole new world. I mean, it did,
Absolutely.
Reduce the deficit, decreased prescription drug prices. Now insulin is capped, as far as how much money is spent on it. But by investing in domestic energy production while promoting clean energy, he actually revolutionized our way of thinking as a country. He brought us out of the old world thinking on energy, and he had clean energy investments in production and transitions to technology neutral tax credits, which we just mentioning. Electric vehicles, right? Both personal and commercial. I went to the gas station. I was trying to fill my car up today, and I was like, "Wait a minute, how much does this cost me?" So the gas is starting to eat at my heart today.
Yeah.
And then
the added maintenance and all that stuff that go along with it as well.
Right. And then building the electrification system and the efficiency of how we produce energy is amazing. Many people don't realize that most of the energy that we sort of rely on right now in Illinois is actually from nuclear energy. We have 5 main nuclear plants here, but there's a transition that's going on into solar, into wind technology, and it's more sustainable. So they also did things with biofuels and sustainable aviation fuels as well.
Mm-hmm.
Clean manufacturing, hydrogen production, those kinds of things are in the background. But I think what the approach that you're taking with the energy, the clean energy, is actually going to save us. We're all looking at this global warming, whether people want to realize it or not. yeah, you can, you can believe that the edge of a cliff doesn't make you fall, but you go over it, you'll find out,
Yeah,
right?
regardless of what you believe or not, you're still falling.
You still fall. Doesn't, yeah, and science doesn't ask for you to believe in it, but it's unforgivable if you don't. That's my view of it.
That is so true.
So what kind of energy things do you see us? What do we need to be doing as a nation? And what are you hoping to see happen in the new administration that comes in? I'm hoping that we're moving into a more progressive administration that's going to talk about these things, do the right things.
I mean, the two administrations couldn't be more diametrically opposed on their position for renewable energy. I'll just say that much. Okay. They've already, as part of the RNC convention last week, one of the things that they talked about, as soon as they get in office, they are, putting an end to a lot of the provisions that were made by the IRA to end a lot of the funding for renewable energy, because they feel that it is unnecessary. So, and I'm pretty sure that the Harris and whoever she picks administration will continue the legacy of Joe Biden and, complete those investments, still double down on those investments in renewable energy, because as you say, it's getting hotter. We're seeing more and more storms. We had a storm this year that came like a month and a half before the season and wiped out, it left the whole city of Houston without power for, a week. Some people still without power in that area. So it's just going to increase more and more and more. So we have to do something to try to reverse these effects.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm living in Tinley Park right now, and we have our utilities underground, which is great because you don't worry about the power lines being knocked down and those kinds of things. So we don't really get blackouts from the electricity. But next door, two houses next door to me had trees blown down, and I'm like, what knocked down that tree? I mean, that was a windstorm that knocked them down, even a tornado. But this devastated these trees, tore up the garage, my neighbor's garage. And so it's here. And when we start talking about 85 hurricanes within a short time span in one of our states, right? We are really in a very revealing time. And unless we open our eyes and see that this is critical that we address right now, we've been warned by the scientists all the time. And I always have a problem with people who are, scientists, with who people talk about scientists and say, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know. And then they pick up their iPhone and use it, right? They use it.
Exactly.
They use
jump on the computer and get on the internet and
on the computer.
turn on the lights.
Right. Who do you think made that? So, we have that kind of time problem. We do. So what do you think as far as veterans, getting involved in this? Do you think veterans need to get more involved in this? This can potentially create a lot of jobs and get people.
That's really one of the things that I wanted to kind of focus on, is that aspect, because it's going to be a complete transition of our energy system, right? Our whole electric grid is going to be modified. You're seeing the deployment of more renewable resources, more microgrids to become more decentralized, if you would say. That gives us a lot more energy security. So you can't have one point of failure to take out a whole city. I'm from a city called Shreveport, Louisiana. I know last year they had a pretty bad, it wasn't a tornado, it wasn't a hurricane or anything like that, just a pretty bad thunderstorm, which they get plenty of down there. A lightning struck one of the primary transformers in that area, which is ironic because my mom worked for the electric company there for like 38 years. But it took out a main transformer, and for about 2 weeks almost in the summertime at triple digit temperatures, the whole city was without power.
That is, and see, that kind of viewpoint brings it to real life, because we had a similar situation in Chicago back in the 1990s, where we had hundreds of deaths because they didn't even have enough, funeral trucks to pick people up. They had to bring in, cooling trucks in order to take care of the number of bodies. And when you start looking at the states that were really hit, Arizona and New Mexico, and it go across the country all the way to California, right?
Absolutely.
Mostly the more of the southern states that were really devastated with that heat wave, and there were probably people who died from that. And I haven't heard many reports, and it's sort of being kind of quiet, about what exactly happened in those places. But even Chicago, it took time for them to realize that, hey, we had a lot of deaths from this thing, from this heat wave, and because people didn't have access to cooling, their air conditioning systems. And if you're in poverty, also, you don't have the resources to do that. Many of our veterans are also homeless. They're living and that kind of thing. So having a cooling center available for them and having the energy supply and able to have that function is critical. And I think that having the redundancy and having an expansion of the energy grid is absolutely critical. So companies like yours are, bringing up the issue. We need to be able to produce energy. And are we going to be diverting our energy that we use for our air conditioning systems to businesses because we need more money to run AI? Well, how are you going to regulate the distribution of this energy in the future? And if it's only about money, then we're dead, right? So
our focus is local generation, right?
Local generation.
Okay. That's really the key. Instead of having to transmit power, most of the energy that we use is generated maybe like 500 miles away from us. And that's where you have all these long, high power transmission lines and, the distribution system. And most of that power, like 70% of it is lost in transmission. So it's very inefficient. And again, if one of those lines are cut or go down, everybody's down who's past that line. So we want to focus on local generation to minimize that risk, to reduce that exposure level to danger and disaster. If everybody is producing their own energy, we don't really care if the transmission line is down because you don't even know in most cases because you're producing your own energy. So that gives stability, that gives that energy security that we lack. So you couldn't take down a whole city just by hitting one point, right? So for the security purposes, we need to be doing that, not just for resiliency, but for security.
Yeah, and that's really a good point too, because we've been hearing about all these things going on. Now we have the airlines up in the air.
That exposed us. That really exposed us. Let us know just how vulnerable we are to something like a Windows update. Took down the whole country.
Right. That's a Windows update. Click on this button. Right.
Yeah. Took down the whole country. A Windows update. So
you're done.
That goes to show you how vulnerable we are at this point.
Yeah. And then one of the major things I know that, we have what we call critical infrastructure and key resource sectors, throughout the country. There are about 19 of them or so. And those, one of them is energy production. And those are targets, right? I remember rolling blackouts going through New York City and through the East Coast because one of the power grids went down or, one of the transformers was knocked out and it wiped out entire cities, if not a larger area of a state. And so the local energy, I think, is really wise. It's and maybe even some redundancy in that,
absolutely.
On the local. So
with the microgrids, we have really three objectives. The first objective is to make power more affordable, right? We can produce it cheaper than the investor-owned utilities can. Secondly, is to make that more resilient. So we give multiple ways of it being up, multiple generation assets combined together. So it makes it power more readily available for you. And last but not least, we want to make it more sustainable, right? Because of all the greenhouse gases that are being produced, we want to reduce that. We want to reduce these storms. We want to reduce it being 120 degrees in the summertime.
Right. One thing is the geopolitical vulnerability too. You know,
Absolutely.
we're at the point where, you know, we are seeing all this hacking going on, and you know, a major system is a major vulnerability point. But if you have multiple systems out there, it's going to be harder for them to try to break into a network that's local
Absolutely. And one of the things that people don't mention
rather
with our
than having
migration
something that
problem.
is much more widely distributed.
Yeah. One of the things that people don't mention with
Yes.
our issue of migration is the fact that in those areas where people are migrating from, there's famine because, you know, they can't grow food because of the changing climate. Right. So climate change is affecting our migration policies, which they don't even, you know, we don't even really discuss. So those are ramifications of, you know, things like, you know, these fossil fuels. We need to do everything we can to reduce those. And we want to make it available for low to moderate income people who can't really afford to do it on their own. That's really our goal. And who better to do that than veterans, because they have the propensity for learning and, you know, picking up and doing good. So we're really looking for veterans to fill this huge void that we have in the intake that we're going to need to deploy these energy projects. So we're really looking for veterans to do that.
And you know, you bring up a really excellent point. You know, many of our veterans have skills that carry and translate over from the military. Many of them were aircraft mechanics,
Mm-hmm.
or they were, you know, mechanized infantry mechanics. They knew that how to sort of work with energy systems or computer systems. So you have a really available force of people who can work on this. And when you were
All
just
we need is people who know how to follow directions.
right.
And that, you know, if you were in the military, we know you can do that.
Oh, you can. Yes, you can. That comes from back from basic.
Absolutely.
But you know, one of the things when you were talking about the you know, the impact of climate change on people accessing food, and we have, you know, desertification going on across. Mm-hmm. So we have mass migrations of people. But here in the United States, one of the things that we are not paying attention to, I think, enough, is that with these rolling climate change effects that are going through, more tornadoes, more vicious hurricanes, more, you know, lightning strikes, all the things that are happening right now. Mm-hmm. What we are missing the point of is that without energy, we can't respond. When we have emergency response vehicles and people going out and trying to, you know, to restore energy, people are on ventilators in hospitals. Yes. You have people who are actually using something very similar in their homes when they have people who have disabilities, you know, for life support. We have people who are really vulnerable out there. And so this is a critical issue. It's not something we can put on the back shelf and say, oh, this is something we'll address in 10 years. We need to address it today.
That's why I've made it my life mission.
Yeah. I can, and I applaud you for that. And you know, the possibility for veterans to have these jobs and to do things, this is fantastic. I mean, I couldn't think of a better project to be involved with. Now, what are some of the things that you see as impediments, things in your way to get things implemented in a better way, to make sure you have the hiring capabilities and all that? I'm not going to even talk about DEI with its implications. Being brought up right
really,
now, you know.
Yes. Our biggest thing is to train the people to do the work. So we just need to train up the workforce. So that's the biggest impediment that we have right now, is a shortage of available skilled solar technicians or skilled renewable energy technicians, skilled EV charger technicians that can install EV chargers, skilled EV mechanics. We're going to need a completely new workforce, right? With some of the skills that we had can transfer over, but we're going to have to acquire a whole new set of skills in order to facilitate this transition. And again, I can't see anybody better to fill those roles than veterans who already have the propensity of learning new skills.
Yeah, and what about the schools for that? Are there more schools opening up now, or the training centers?
There are a lot of training centers that are opening up. There are a lot of programs that are associated with this right now. They're providing direct workforce development training. Some of the unions, the IBEW in particular, they're providing a lot of these trainings because there is going to be a huge need for solar technicians, for renewable energy technicians. And Illinois is one of the states that has really adopted the use of renewable energy technologies, and we see a lot of action going on in that state.
Well, how do people contact you for your company, for Rivian Energy? How do they get in touch with you if they're interested in it? Because we have many veterans who are listening to the show right now, for advice or to get, to try to get into a program. And, I'm not sure of what the funding mechanism is for the training, whether as a veteran you have, resources,
there are all types of resources for veterans that are for free. We've been on this show before. We've put out a list of some free resources that you can get some training. And I'd be more than willing to share that list again with anybody who's listening, because we need as many people as we can to help make this transition. Okay. So to get in touch with me, you can go to our website, and that's Brevian, that's BREVIAN energy.com. Again, that's brevianenergy.com. Or you can always reach us at sales@brevianenergy.com, or you can reach me directly at area code 760-925-5500. 760-925-5500.
That is a dedicated CEO.
Yeah, reach me directly.
Reach you directly. Wow. Yeah. So, we have about 2 more minutes to go, but I want you to, in this last 2 minutes, just give me, what you think people need to know, in short order, and then we can, move on from there. But we're definitely going to have you back multiple times, because this problem is not going away overnight, and we're going to need someone as dedicated as you focusing on it. So go ahead, Rob.
Absolutely. I just want to say, number one, thank you again for having me, letting me share on this platform, on this very esteemed platform. The energy transition now is starting right now, right? With the help of the Biden administration, it has really accelerated the growth of these kind of projects. So we just need everyone to be diligent, everyone to be keep in mind that we are faced with a grave challenge right now of global warming or climate change. I don't want to say global warming, but we're facing a huge issue of climate change. So we all must do what we can to help protect the only place that I know that we have to live, and that's here on Earth, right? So do everything you can, try to recycle, try to, turn down your energy or carve your energy uses when you can. So we can all benefit in the long run.